day in terms of the political outlook in South Africa.
Mm.
So therefore, democracy in its entirety is very fundamental. Democratic participation is also key in terms of understanding that and what that means. Children must be able to understand the effects of that, or what will happen on the 30th also has direct effects on them as citizens of this country. And therefore, that form of democratic participation should be taken with very much importance and should be considered in terms of all the other institutions that are there to safeguard our democracy and to ensure that children are also part of this conversation. They are also understanding what is happening in the country. They're also involved in these manifesto discussions because you see political parties speaking about children right related things, children interest in children's services, but there is a more or least need for consideration of children to be involved in this discussion because they are also rightfully so in the position to be able to participate in that and contribute in terms of the shaping of that democracy and how it looks like.
And as you say, in considering the fact that the decisions taken in part affect their lives, and I wonder what role then does civic education and civic engagement have in bolstering this sort of reach into children and bringing children along for the conversation. And I think I asked that because also we struggle right now, as a country, getting youth involved in the process, getting young adults involved in the process. And I wonder if maybe the conversation begins far earlier in grade 9 and grade 10. It then breeds, a 22-year-old, 23-year-old that's equally invested in the processes of democracy.
I think the foundation is exactly that. And before focusing on voting is part of democratic participation because voting is part of the scheme of Section 19 of the Constitution, not the only part of Section 19 of the Constitution. So therefore, if we are able to understand that broader framework, we are able to have everyone participating from the onset in terms of this democratic journey that we're also part of, including children. So if we are able to hold that understanding, we are able to include children in these discussions. What we've also seen in particular by the Department of Basic Education on the School Democracy Week, which was the 22nd to the 28th of April, there was a clear appetite from young people, from children in school, that they want to participate in democracy. They want to be informed earlier about the democratic participation and what it means. And that really means that more and more civic education also could potentially, one could argue that it could also have impact in terms of the youth voter turnout that we may see at the end, because we would have sort of developed this along the way, the journey of civic education and what it means. Children will be able to understand what democratic participation means in the earlier ages, as opposed to this, now you just turned 18, so therefore you vote. You don't understand the importance of that. You've never been part of the democratic process. Now you are a major, you are 18 and you are expected to vote, but you don't appreciate that participation because you've missed that along the way. And therefore, what I'm arguing in the article is that there should be more that is done in terms of democratic participation, in terms of getting children involved. Children are already in organized sort of existing spaces. You have movements such as equal education where they have like nice young people, the equalizers that are part of these conversations. And I think it should be more and outside those organized spaces where democratic participation is also being prioritized for children as well.
And you touch on something there, Yolisa, the fact that, this ecosystem is sort of it's intertwined, right? The more we build this route from the base down, the better outcomes we have in future, even with things like lower voter turnout. And I wonder, you also draw comparisons with New Zealand, who've initiated young people in the conversation around democratic participation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key areas in terms of like health participation, firstly, in South African context, is the understanding of the binding nature of the UNCRC in South Africa
Mm.
as the international law. And we see the same being replicated by the Section 10 of the Children's Act. That kind of participation is also founded in international law. What I draw in the article is that one should also look at what happened in New Zealand, where young people organized themselves on that hashtag Make It 16, where they were saying that the voting age should be lowered to the age of 16. And the arguments there were that I am 16 years, I'm eligible to register to vote, I'm paying taxes, maybe
Mm.
I'm eligible to be employed. But one of these things that I'm excluded from is making, at least being able to vote. But all the other things that maybe an emancipated individual, a young adult is entitled to do, I'm able to do.
Mm.
And therefore, even the decision of whoever comes into power has an effect on my life as that 16-year-old. So there were a lot of consideration, there were a lot of lessons in terms of what is child participation and how it looks like, and how it actually, when it's prioritized and government is able to benefit from the views of young people. So that there's sort of like those kind of lessons that are also fundamentally so important in terms of what happened in New Zealand. And maybe our government should also draw lessons in terms of understanding that and how that looks like,
Mm.
and particularly the institutions that are there to safeguard our democracy.
Yeah. In fact, that was going to be my follow up to say, are there lessons for us to be learned from, societies like New Zealand and this campaign, hashtag Make It 16? Because it makes a lot of sense. If I'm 16 and eligible to vote and maybe, employed, part time, full time, whatever, you're drawing taxes from me. So, for all intents and purposes, you are treating me as a young adult, and I should hence have a say in matters that affect my life. So, what lessons can we be drawing from that as South Africa moving forward?
I think one of the key areas, obviously for us as South Africa, it should not be necessarily this conversation of let's make it 16, let's make 16-year-olds to be eligible to vote. But what one of the like, key lessons that I make reference in the article is that because the premise of the article is that of democratic participation,
Mm.
and therefore the lessons that we should be able, or at least put forward, and draw from that, it is the significance of allowing children to participate, permitting their views and to be part of the discourse of matters that are affecting them. Um, because I mean the legislation and even international law, particularly also General Comment 25 of on the right to participation in public affairs, does preclude children of like lower than the age of 18 to vote, to voting. So we wouldn't be wanting to be making an argument around voting if you are 16 or even younger,
Mm.
but the importance of being part of the democratic participation, the importance of being part of these conversations, because ultimately the country's outlook and the decisions and whatever happens on the 30th of May by in every way will affect children of this country.
Mm.
And it is important that they are also kept informed about those kind of decisions that are particularly gonna affect them as well.
Absolutely. If you have a view and a perspective on our conversation, we always invite you to be a part of the discussion with my guest on 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 061 as we discuss with Yolisa Peliso, who is a human rights lawyer, around children's right to participate in the democratic process, and what might that look like for, a 16, 17-year-old. And it's something that I'm sure you've given consideration to, even within the context of your household. Or maybe it's something that only now the bells are ringing in your head to say, actually, even within the confines of my household, how often do I involve my children, in conversations around democracy, in conversations around their rights, in conversations around issues that may or may not affect them, broader social issues that may or may not affect them, and do you give space for their views to be heard? So before we even look at the IEC and before we even look at political parties, maybe let's look at ourselves within the nucleus of our respective homes and say, do you actually give your children the right to be heard at the dinner table and the right for their opinion to matter in the issues of the day? It's 1:30. Madupi is standing by with your headline news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, there may be evidence that Jabulani Khumalo, who registered the MK party last year, handed over the party's leadership to former President Jacob Zuma last month. Western Cape Premier Alan Windey says investigators are already on the scene of the collapse of the multi-story building in George. And a man in Yunnan in the southern China has killed 2 people and wounded more than 20 others in a knife attack at a hospital. Details of these and other stories coming up at 2.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, and we are in conversation with Yolisa Peliso, who is a human rights lawyer, and we're talking around children's rights to participate within the democratic process in South Africa. Of course, you know that we've had a focus on 30 years of democracy, and this afternoon we thought we'd interrogate that as much as, Section 10, for instance, of the Children's Act emphasizes the importance of children's voices and views to be considered. Are they really being considered when it comes to democratic participation? Or maybe we also are missing an opportunity there to get them invested, to get them engaged in matters and issues at a very young age, so that, or as soon as they are able to comprehend, so that later on in life we don't have the struggle of, young South Africans, of youth South Africans who are eligible to cast a vote, feeling so disattached to the process. And we invite you to share your perspective on 061 410 Let's go to WhatsApp.
I think let's stop using fancy words and say their views can be listened to. We don't care about the views of children. What the adults decide goes. They can comment, they can complain. They don't have a right to do anything about the democratic system. If we say participation, we don't mean come and say, I think you should take this school there, and then they said, we heard you, but no. You understand? The elected people are the one that decides. Those that elect, the one that decide. So their views doesn't really matter. It can be taken into consideration. So basically, they don't participate in the democratic process at all. They have no rights. Thank you.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
I mean, delivered with quite passion there, I must admit. It's a sad sentiment, but perhaps maybe there is some truth to it that, maybe those who should care don't care about hearing the views of children. Yolisa?
Sure. I mean, that was quite passionate. I mean, there's so many people that maybe hold the same view about children and how we view children, and that is often problematic because children also qualify for the same rights as adults, including like your right to dignity, and all of that. So if the understanding is that children should just be only viewed as just like the offsprings of adults, and it ends there, and that approach is problematic. The issue of participation is founded in law. It's founded in the constitution itself. It's also in our legislation. It's there, unfortunately. But there's a lot of mindset shift that needs to happen, in order for us to be able to understand the role of children, in participating in democracy, and what really it means. I mean, in the earlier reference that you made, ourselves, what are we doing in our households? Are we just expecting our children when they're just in 18? We can only now start talking about elections and participation in democracy. That shouldn't be the case. Early participation in democracy is important for children, and it's there to safeguard the future of this country, and each also the future of the children themselves, that should be allowed to participate even at this point.
And Yolisa, as we talk about this and that reference about just what are we doing in our homes, right? I'm thinking about a simple example, that TV show called, oh, why is it escaping me now? With the family of cops. And they sit around the dinner table every Sunday, Blue Bloods, and they sit around the dinner table every Sunday. And issues are tabled and ventilated, often issues pertaining to the adults of the family, right? However, the children of the family throughout the seasons of the show had been invited to be part of the discourse, to share their views and the perspective, to share their views on how they see things and how things affected them, and encouraged to do so. And I think in essence that is what we're talking about here. It's not a whether or not children should be in parliament or whether or not children at 16 should be casting the vote, but it's opening up a safe space for them to be able to engage on issues and matters. Am I understanding the essence of the positioning and the argument correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. You've got it straight up. I mean, it there could be arguments, in terms of the right to vote itself. I mean, children cannot vote. We're not saying, I mean, we're not saying they must vote. And the article doesn't even suggest that. But it prioritizes participation, because participation in democracy is founded in legislation. And participation in democracy also includes the process of developing legislation, in this country. Legislation that is there to also affect children. There are different forms that are there in place for developing legislation and ensuring that children's voices are also included in that participation. And even on international law, developing of general comments or anything that relate to development of the law that affects children, children are allowed spaces to participate. They can be able to participate through even digital forms, videos, and to put their views. And adults will be so surprised to understand that the views of children are very important in shaping the future of this country, and how they comprehend and understand issues that are affecting them. But the more we suppress them and not being part of this discourse, the more we are also delaying their participation in democracy, the more we're also opening an opportunity for them not to even participate when they are adults. So there are a lot of benefits in terms of child participation and how it can benefit the country as well.
Absolutely. Let's go to WhatsApp. By the way, Brian in Protea Glen, you make the suggestion that perhaps if we want 16-year-olds to vote, we have to put them in Parliament first, and we mustn't force them unless we put them in Parliament to represent themselves without being represented by people. And I think that was the essence of what we're trying to get across here, that it's not, I mean, there's children's parliament and things like that, but I guess even in those institutions, it would be nice from time to time if the grown people parliament went to the children's parliament and sat in and listened to children in their space ventilate issues, because there's some solid minds that come out of those organizations. Let's see what else is on WhatsApp.
Good day, Bridget and the SFM listeners. It would really be interesting, if 16-year-olds would be able to vote. I can tell you, the AMA 2000, some of them, if you listen, in terms of decision making, especially the new voters now, some of these things for them would be a joke, So I think maybe we would first need to do education and awareness around the importance of voting and what it means, because, some of them, it would just be a trend. They would just create a trend, and without realizing the consequences to it. That's just my view. Sure.
A light but serious note to end it on. And maybe we have to allow children also the space to communicate in the ways that they fancy and the ways that resonate to them. Your final thoughts?
I mean, it's so interesting to always hear adults that think that children all they do is joke. And sometimes it's also an incorrect assumption, because it suggests that 18-year-olds that are actually voting, and even much older people, understand this democratic participation and what it means. It could also, I mean, there could be possibilities that even your adults that are there, that are making these decisions themselves, are jokingly making decisions. They are not comprehending the consequences of democratic participation and what it means to vote. I mean, we've seen with the manifesto things happening across the country. We see like the understanding, or at least the dominion that is sort of being put out by political parties. It is of that, I'm going to build you this road, you're going to vote for me. But democratic participation and understanding and appreciation of that, it doesn't end there. I must be able to understand, what am I voting for? If you are able to bid mill this road the next day, so what? You're still going to remain in power, and what are the effects and consequences of all of that? So that education is also particularly important for adults themselves. So it's not always correct that there is lack of appreciation of real or importance of issues of children. I do agree with, obviously, on the issue of education. Education is important. It will be able to take us a step forward in terms of understanding one's choice in terms of voting, and also the appreciation of democratic participation overall.
Absolutely. Yolisa Piliso, I appreciate the time with you this afternoon, and thank you so much for unpacking your thoughts with us and, of course, with our listeners as well. And Yolisa is a human rights lawyer and chatting to us today about perhaps opening up participation and dialogue for children in order to, build their democratic muscle and let their voices be heard. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we come back on the other side of this and we get into stages, pages, screens, and more. And we're going to be catching up with the 2024 Young Voices Awards recipient, and he walked away with the prize in this category at the Joburg Film Festival. We'll find out more about his project and, of course, the significance of this win.
Durban is yet again ready to welcome thousands of delegates and buyers who will be attending the Africa Travel Indaba at the Durban ICC from 13th to 16th May. The Indaba, that attracts delegates from across the globe, is the continent's leading travel showpiece. Hosting events of this magnitude continues to position Durban as a business and holiday destination of choice. Durban Tourism, together with community tourism organizations and local businesses, are eager to showcase that indeed Durban has more to offer. Durban is on the move. Join us at stand DEC 1G50. Durban is Africa's leading festival and event destination according to the World Travel Awards 2023.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Welcome to the game of life. At kickoff, it's 0-0. What you do next decides the result. Make a good decision, you're ahead. Make a mistake, you're chasing. You need a good plan and a great team behind you. Find that team at lifeofconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Live with confidence. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services and registered credit provider.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
All right, we're catching up with a young filmmaker, writer, and director, as well as social artivist. I love an artivist. Ndogozo Mlaba joins me now. How are you doing this afternoon?
How are you, ma'am? I'm good. On yourself?
I'm fantastic. I happened to be in attendance at the Joburg Film Festival when you walked away with that incredible prize for the 2024 Young Voices Award this year. I mean, the significance of firstly showcasing at, the Joburg Film Festival, which has just grown from strength to strength, and ultimately, being recognized for the incredible work and the stories that you're telling.
Yes, it was a monumental win in my young infant career, but I'm absolutely grateful. I've soaked it in, and now we're getting to work again.
I mean, I love how you say in your young career, Ntokozo, but you've been steadily, been in the creative spaces for a number of years now. You're a practitioner and actor as well as student of the National School of the Arts, and you've actually churned out quite a few projects in recent years. So young in age, but definitely formidable in as far as your repertoire of work.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really just about taking initiative because in the space, nobody really hands you any opportunity. You really have to work for the opportunity that you do get. So we try as much as possible just to create opportunities for ourselves and also collaborate horizontally with people who, like you're saying, I went to an art school, so I have a lot of friends who are also artists. So try to collaborate so that we can create opportunities for ourselves and don't necessarily have to depend on the space to finance us or to hire us. Just now we have a show coming up next week called Songs of Freedom, where I'll be collaborating with my friends from high school, and we're coming together and we're just promoting democracy through this platform where it's going to be an audiovisual presentation and a jazz ensemble. We're promoting 30 years of freedom and celebrating the electorate, so just encouraging people to go out and vote, and also informing people about their past, young people especially. So if you do have the opportunity to come out on the 18th of May at the Market Theatre, please do.
Awesome. And very much centered to the work that you do is actually telling stories that speak to the issues that plague what you term issues that plague the hood. And in fact, you've undertaken a trilogy along this. Was Everything Nothing part of that trilogy, which is the film that won big for you at the recent Joburg Film Awards? or film festival?
No, not necessarily. So nothing was really just a submission to a brief that was given by the Joburg Film Festival. So the trilogy's part of a trilogy is called The Passage, and that did its festival run in 2022. So now we're coming back and we're moving into pre-production for my second short film, which forms a part of that trilogy, which is The Passage, and it deals with how all men are susceptible to being perpetrators or party to a rape because of the space that they occupy in society and the perpetuation of patriarchy. And it just deals with like that idea that and it's my form of activism, I guess, against the prevalence of gender-based violence in this country and the disrespect with which black men treat black women in the township. And it's such a prevalent topic in our country where you're constantly seeing these things happening. Today we just heard news of a girl that was stabbed today by a bus driver. So these are the issues that are just happening every single day, and until men actually take a stance against these kinds of things, they'll continue to be perpetuated,
Yeah.
So,
and is The Passage the project where you had announced that you were currently in crowdfunding for it?
Yes. So when we won the award at the Joburg Film Festival, and when I won the award, sorry, I'm gotten used to speaking we. When I won the award at the Joburg Film Festival, I got up and I pitched my second short film because there were a lot of people in the room who I felt had the means to kind of help us make it possible. Because as an independent filmmaker, as a young filmmaker, it's really hard to gain access for your films. It's always just bootstrapping, and even the film that I won the award for, I shot it on my phone and I edited it on a friend's laptop. So that's the lifestyle of a young filmmaker who doesn't have access to all the resources that are required to make this dream a reality. But through just hardships and also the grace of God, opportunities have been opening up, and we've been able to gain access, and now we've gotten the funding to actually make the film. So that's very. It alleviated the burden, and now we're able to do other things with my nonprofit organization. And do a lot of community work there. So it's helpful, and it's lovely, and I'm extremely grateful.
Well, listen, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished thus far. And indeed, it was quite delightful to watch you with all the bravery and all the articulation do your 2-minute pitch during your acceptance speech at the Joburg Film Festival. And as he says, he took the opportunity in a room full of money and resource and skill. And jumping to the party was the big bank ABSA that came through and signed him on the spot 150,000 Rand to finish this film, The Passage. So we look forward to seeing your name in all the credits in Ntokozo Mlamba, and a job well done to you, the 2024 Young Voices Award recipient. 18th of May, you have a date with him and his friends for Songs of Freedom happening at the Market Theatre. It's just gone 10-2. It's time for us to get into Kids Corner.
Mama Kitty, I heard Rand Water talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Rand Water pipelines are under the ground distributing megaliters of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Rand Water is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Rand Water servitude is where a Rand Water pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Rand Water servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Rand Water beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Rand Water pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue, and have the Rand Water logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Rand Water beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Rand Water, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
Welcome to the game of life. At kickoff, it's 0-0. What you do next decides the result. Make a good decision, you're ahead. Make a mistake, you're chasing. You need a good plan and a great team behind you. Find that team at lifeofconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Live with confidence.
Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services and registered credit provider.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chipumbu for #1 contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Good day, everyone. My name is Amango Zamiana. Today I will be talking about how school is so far. Well, school is going well so far, but there are some challenges. One difficulty is managing my time effectively, as I have a lot of homework and extramurals. To make school easier, I would like more guidance on time management and prioritizing. I am getting some help from my teachers, but I would like more support from my peers and my family. To make my 2024 school year better and smoother, I would like to regularly check in with my teachers and family to discuss my progress and challenges, and to study a bit more. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys learned something new today. See you next time.
Hello everyone, my name is Zonaka Malihasi. I'm 10 years old. My school is Sumezo Primary and I live at Middleland Zone 7. Up to so far, the school is great and amazing. No, there's nothing that make my school life difficult. Going to school without pocket money, lacking of water at school. The school can be made easier for me if they can assist with school tablet and free school Wi-Fi. Yes, I am getting enough and necessary help from those around me and my teachers. Yes, to make my 2024 school academic year easier and smoother, I would need an extra lessons after school.
My name is Labanzi Hlongwane. You know, the question of today, it's really triggering. Like, I think from my deep sighs, you can already tell how school is going so far. I don't even know what to say because it's not looking good. The workload, number one, is absolutely crazy. It's like they just give you homework non-stop. I am going to start exams on the 27th of May. I can't even study because there's so much homework. I have to complete my homework first before I study. And, I have never felt like screaming and crying at the same time. School is just like, wow. I think there are definitely some things that are making school so difficult, is that the teachers, I feel, are a bit inconsiderate. Like, there are some teachers that believe they are the only teacher in the whole school. They will give you 3 activities in one day. And then you will get more homework through the course of the day. I am definitely not complaining about the help that I'm getting from school. My teachers teach very, very, very well. I think there is absolutely nothing that can make 2024 or my school academic year easier or smoother. I just think I have to get with the program.
Hello, my name is Manay Angel Langabera, and my school workload so far is like normal because I get 3 homeworks per day or 1 or 2 homeworks, so it's normal. What I think can be useful for children in order for them to pass this term and enjoy school better is that the more you listen to the teachers, the more you start to enjoy school and do your work like find something fun to do, but also including schoolwork. Like get some help from the teachers, give you extra lessons. Then you can realize that, yeah, you can have so much fun at school. Thank you and have a lovely day.
Good afternoon. My name and surname is Pilgo Shempembe. Our workload has been manageable so far. It would benefit the children to work hard and complete all their homework. It can be nice also to do homework with our parents, and to practice reading makes learning fun and easy. Thank you.
Hello friends! How's school treating you so far? The second term is about to end very soon. And I do understand that school life can sometimes feel like a roller coaster ride with its ups and downs. But guess what? You have the power to make it absolutely amazing. One of the best ways to make your school life smoother is by avoiding unnecessary stress. And that means saying no to procrastination, steering clear of distractions, and bidding farewell to negative thoughts. Procrastination might seem like a quick fix, but it often leads to last-minute panic and poor performance. Instead, try breaking your tasks into smaller, manageable pieces and tackle them one step at a time. This will make studying more bearable and help you retain information better. When you stay focused and organized, you are paving way for success. Here's another tip to rock your school days. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether it's a tricky math problem or a confusing grammar rule, your teachers and friends are there to lend a helping hand. Don't hesitate to raise your hand in class or schedule some one-on-one time with your teacher. Remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a superpower that shows your eagerness to learn and grow. Lastly, always remember that you're not alone on this journey. Your family, friends, and teachers are your biggest cheerleaders. They are rooting for you every step of the way. So if you ever feel overwhelmed or unsure, together, you can conquer any challenge and turn your school days into an epic adventure filled with learning and fun.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
At 2 o'clock, developments in the MK registration matter and investigators on scene at the George building collapsed. A very good afternoon. Starting with election news, there may be evidence that Jabulani Khumalo, who registered the MK party last year, handed over the party's leadership to former President Jacob Zuma last month. The SABC has seen a letter dated April the 9th in which Khumalo told the Electoral Commission that he had resigned as MK party leader and stated that Zuma would take over as leader and would be the face of the party. The letter precedes a recent one dated the 5th of this month in which Khumalo requests the Commission to urgently remove Zuma as the face of the party. Khumalo has accused Zuma of being occupied with both positions fraudulently. His latest correspondence comes after he and a number of other MK members were expelled from the party last week. ANC veteran Tokyo Sekgwale says the governing party's house is on fire. He says it is up to party veterans to help douse the ANC's raging flames. Sekgwale and former party leaders, including Thabo Mbeki, Kgalema Motlanthe and David Mabuza, have joined the ANC election campaign. Baleka Mbete and Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka are set to join soon. Sekgwale was speaking to the media during an ANC election campaign in Katlehong, east of Joburg.
When your home, your father's home, is on fire, you don't do ngabaza and ask what's happening. You take the bucket and join all others, and we douse the flames. Then we can talk later under the mile. What caused the problems? But for now, the house is on fire. That's why we're here, to join these leaders and to join them in the correction of the mistakes, but also in the work of ensuring that a better life for our people is achieved, not just a dream.
Moving on to other news now, Western Cape Premier Alan Winde says investigators are already on the scene of the collapse of the multi-story building in Georgia. He has confirmed that the death toll now stands at 6. 27 people have been rescued and hospitalized, while 48 others are still trapped under debris. Addressing the media in George, Winde reiterated that saving the lives of those who are trapped is the priority of the rescue teams.
But while you are lifting layers on concrete, you must have those investigators on site because you don't want to remove perhaps what was the cause. So they need to be monitoring it and watching it. And all of those operations have to happen. The Department of Labour, the police, all of those, they are on site in their capacities. But whatever happens, they have to move out of the way when you need to get in there to rescue. And that's the priority. And it will be for the next 48 hours.
Officials say 500 people have been displaced in a fire at the Dunoon informal settlement in Cape Town. A firefighter was treated on the scene for an injury sustained. The city's Charlotte Powell says a joint operations center has been established on site. She says 120 structures have been destroyed, with 10 electrical poles, a water pipe and a mobile toilet damaged.
Eskom is on scene to address damage to electrical infrastructure. Disaster risk management has also activated water and sanitation and solid waste to clear the fire debris and to attend to damaged city infrastructure. Gift to the Givers, Islamic Relief and the Warehouse will assist with humanitarian relief.
And a man in Yunnan in southern China has killed 2 people and wounded more than 20 others in a knife attack at a hospital. The wounded have been admitted to the hospital and police are investigating the case. Video footage appeared to show the assailant, a local villager, wielding a knife in the hospital lobby. Reports say he's since been detained. The top story at 2 o'clock. There may be evidence that Jabulani Khumalo, who registered the MK party last year, handed over the party's leadership to former President Jacob Zuma last month. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Noma kanjani Jani wami Ngeke ngikushiye sofa silahlane Noma kanjani Jani wami Ngeke ngikushiye sofa silahlane Noma kanjani Jani wami Ngeke ngikushiye Yintoni na ondenza yona Nxa ndivuke kuseni ndincumile ngenxa yothando lwakho Mna ndiyoyika ukukubuza nesithungo sakho mhlawumbe siyazalana mntana womuntu nalabo mphethe ngayo isolo isithathile isigqibo akanjani noma kanjani noma kanjani wami noma kanjani Ingaske ungahamba ubuyele ekhaya, ingaske ubusuku bungadluli, ngondisibambile isandla sakho, ungowami ndingowakho, Dani wami, ndifuna wena eqaleni kwami, indlela undiphethe ngayo izolo, ndisithathile isigqibo, ungowami noma kanjani, Dani wami, so fast Dani, noma kanjani, Dani wami, angeke ndikushiye, so fast Dani, Dani wami, Dani wami, so fast Dani, angeke, Dani wami, yeah, so fast Dani, ungowami ndingowakho, Dani wami, ndifuna wena eqaleni kwami, indlela umphethe ngayo izolo, ndisithathile isigqibo, akanjani noma kanjani, yeah, Dani wami, so fast Dani, angeke ndikushiye wedwa, Dani wami, Dani wami, so fast Dani, noma kanjani, Dani wami, so fast Dani, andifuni ukuba lutho ngawe, Dani wami, ungowami, so fast Dani,
That is how we enter the the second hour today on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. It's just gone 10 past 2 o'clock. We love it when we get to enjoy some music on the show. Of course, it's Noma Ganjani, Nati, and Vusinova on this particular one today. Still would love to see them together in concert. I haven't quite caught that yet. That would be a lovely treat, even if it's at a show or an event or something where they just take to the stage together. That would be beautiful. By the way, I wonder, did you catch Vusinova's tribute to Zahara at the Metro FM Music Awards 2 weekends ago? Oh, such a beautiful moment that was. So heartfelt and so sincere, in fact. And seeing her guitar on display for that performance on the stage was just a reminder of just the supreme talent that we lost in that young woman. As we shift gears now and have a look at all things health and wellness on this Tuesday, we're going to be having a conversation around burn emergencies. And of course, what is essential in the instance that you do suffer a burn to your body or to yourself, some of the do's and don'ts that we should be considering. And we've got Mandy Topkin, who is the General Manager of Emergency Trauma, Transplant and Corporate Social Investment at Netcare, joining us for this conversation. Good afternoon to you, Mandy. How are you doing?
Thanks, and you, Bridget.
I'm
It's a hell of a
fantastic.
title, that, don't you agree?
It is. It really is.
Takes up half your show.
It's all right. You're in good company with some of our previous guests as well, Mandy. You're in good company indeed. Let's talk about this burn injuries. And you guys say that they are a devastating issue in South Africa with far-reaching consequences, not just for individuals, but for families as well.
Yeah, Bridget, I think if we just look at the scars, first of all, that occur from burns, these are scars that you will never get rid of, especially when you've got a serious burn. It's extremely devastating for children to be disfigured, adults to be disfigured from burns. And then if you look at where some of our people stay, and you look at the townships where there's no access to fire hoses, water, that kind of thing, it's devastating from, people die from burns. And also they lose everything. You've seen the recent fires that we've had. And also if you look at the recent fires that have destroyed some really, really amazing things like Notre Dame, like in Cape Town, where we had a fire at the university's library. These are things we don't want to be losing from fires. So, yeah, fires are devastating, burns are devastating. Little ones, when we put our food in the oven and we burn our arm, that's not really a big deal. We might be left with a scar for the rest of our lives. But when you start to get disfigured, it's significantly devastating for people.
And I feel like, burns at various degrees seemingly are common, common incidences that happen. But I also feel as if there's very little education as to how we sort of deal with burns in that interim phase whilst we're waiting for emergency personnel to come through and take over.
No, 100%. So, burns are relatively common. I think millions of people experience burn injuries every year worldwide. And the best treatment while you wait for someone is cooling the burn with water, nothing more. So all of this nonsense that we put on, toothpaste and all other remedies that we found in the house, are really just dangerous. And there's a really good product called Burn Shield, which is available and was made in South Africa by a South African company. And basically what that is water with aloe. So not everybody can afford to buy Burn Shield, but everybody can afford to find water somewhere and a cloth somewhere. You don't have to. You can even find it in a just a bucket of water by putting your limb into that bucket or wetting a cloth and putting it over the burn area, or even just putting it over the clothes that are on the burn, so water. And you'll remember that very devastating explosion we had in Boksburg where people, the best treatment for those kind of people would be to wrap them in some sort of clean sheet or cloth or whatever and just put cool water on it. But those people were really seriously injured and they had like 80 to 100% burns.
We're having a conversation on the back of it being a Burn Awareness Week. And by the way, if you do have a graphic mind and you have some sensitivities, let me just warn you around this conversation that perhaps it might ignite some of your sensitivities. I know some folks have a graphic mind, and just so that you are aware of that. And I think, Burn Week, Burn Awareness Week is exactly about that, Mandy. It's exactly about necessitating the conversation around, in part, proactive prevention measures and also education.
There's so much that can be done by raising awareness and providing education. I agree with you. I did a project with some students in Pretoria a long time ago where candles, people who still use candles, and many South Africans still do use candles for light, but instead of putting it on a plate next to your bed, putting it in a bottle, in a glass jar with some sand in the glass jar and the bottle in the sand, so that if the bottle falls over, the sand will automatically put the fire out. And so you don't risk that fire. Now, these are things that can be done at school. They can be taught at school. Teaching children to stop, drop, and roll if their clothing catches alight. Teaching them how to put it out. All this burn awareness is really important. And even in areas where there isn't access to water, just having a bucket with sand in it and a start, you could throw the sand over the burn and over the fire and stop that. And then also just educating people that there really are some stupid things that they do. You know, like, why would you throw petrol on a braai to make it burn fire, to make it burn faster and harder? So many people I have seen burnt by throwing petrol on the fire, or their kids standing there and the flame shoots back and shoots, and it's devastating. I mean, I used to work in a burns unit in pediatrics many years ago, and in adults a few years ago, and one of the most devastating burn injuries are those that are preventable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely preventable, 100%.
And, you know, you bring up an important element. I remember, you know, when I was in school in the 90s, we'd oftentimes have, and I guess perhaps now issues around capacity might come to play, but we'd oftentimes have the local fire stations come through to schools at least once a year for the purposes of educating around fire awareness and safety. And of course, should you find yourself in that situation and resulting in burns, what should be done or what can you do? And I feel as if those programs no longer exist, those kind of in-school and in-community programs, awareness programs.
Well, I agree with you 100%, and don't you think it would be amazing if it was part of the curriculum to teach children about preventing burns and how to put prevention in at home? Do you know one of the simple things that you can do tonight when you go home is to say to your family, what happens if we have a fire in our house? How do we get out? Where are the keys? You know, we live in houses that have got burglar bars and burglar bars on top of burglar bars, and when there is a fire and you can't find the key and you've got burglar bars on your doors and your windows, well, how do you do this now? And this is something you should practice before you have a fire. You know, you should have a little fire extinguisher at home. You should have some burn treatment, even if it is just basic stuff. And this is not difficult stuff to teach. It's really about just thinking logically about, should I really be doing what I'm doing? You know, should I really put an electric cable under a carpet and then walk over it every day? Well, no, not really, because what's going to happen is that electric cable is going to fray, and it's either going to catch light, electrocute you, or start a fire. So very, very, very simple things. Putting candles in you know the old mayonnaise jar? You know the mayonnaise jar? You make the candle shorter than the jar, and then you put it into sand. And even now with load shedding, if you use candles or whatever, just make sure that when that candle falls over, the sand will kill the flame. And then just thinking safety when you deal with fires. You know, don't drink around a fire and then fall backwards into the bonfire while you're having it. So have a little bit of just think rationally. Maybe we all sometimes do silly things, but the devastation of doing something silly that lands up with, in many instances, death, and in many instances disfigurement, you know, due to the burn. Yeah.
And I think everything that you speak of thus far, by way of just some of these safety tips and safety awareness, speaks to logical thinking. You know, and as you talk about, have you ever simulated a fire drill within your own household? I can tell you now, 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10 of our listeners probably just had an aha moment and thought, well, I've never done that, you know.
Well, if I can save one family, Bridget, including yours, by you going home tonight and saying to your family, how do we call? Where do we find the key? What do we do if we have a fire? How do we put something over our nose? Maybe we wet our clothes. You know, in my house, you can imagine living with me, there's safety everywhere. But I mean, normally what happens when you have a fire in your house is you've got to crawl. You've got to stay lower than the smoke. But how do you get to the key if you don't know where you're going? So put blindfolds on everybody and make them crawl and make them feel what your house feels like if you're crawling at night. And where do you keep that key that opens that security gate or that door? But not only one area, because the fire might be in that area. So what is the second area? What is the third area? Or maybe I can just get into the bath and fill it with water and just wait. But the issue is you got to really practice these things, and we don't do it until we really are in trouble, and then we know, you know, we're in a panic and we haven't practiced it. And our kids could do this. It's a lovely game for your kids.
Yeah.
Put them, blindfold them, and say, okay, now you have to get out the house. You know, and how do they get out the house? How do they find the key? And also just to phone for help. What number do you phone? How do you phone? What do you say to people? All different areas in South Africa have different numbers, you know, so people have to know how to phone. And then also remain calm in an emergency, ensure your safety of people, and then obviously get medical help as soon as you can for burns. The quicker you get burns treated, the better the outcome is.
Absolutely. I'm definitely going to go and do a walk around before this week is over in my house. I think some of us go, oh, okay, I've got the fire extinguisher sorted, but it's downstairs. And as you say, you might not be able to get downstairs and make your way all the way through to the garage, through the burglar bars, through the, I've got a whistle in my keys upstairs in case I can't really scream for help. But okay, what happens in all these other situations? And you definitely are giving us a lot to think about. Let's also walk through, what happens and I know you've said if you get some kind of burn, run the burn through water, water, clean, room temperature water, I presume, or cold water, whatever water you can find. Yeah. But we also have a lot of sort of wives' tales, right? We grew up, and I know particularly within Black communities, you grow up if you burn yourself on the stove or you burn yourself with whatever, Gogo will quickly run and take some rama or some butter and smear it on. And it's only in later years I realized that, no, that can't be correct.
Yeah. We should give all the old wives' tales back to the old men. You know what I'm saying? A lot of it's amazing how people will remember the old wives' tales, but they won't actually listen to what is the actual right way to do it. Yeah. Butter is dangerous. Margarine is dangerous. I don't want to name the margarine. They might not like you and I. But water is available to most people, and everybody can. And what you want to do is you want to stop the further burn. Remember, the burn continues to burn in your cell as long as it remains hot, or as long as the chemical remains on you, or as long as you're still in the area of burn, you will continue to burn deeper and deeper in the cells. What you want to do is you want to cool the burn area to stop the burn, and that also stops the severity in most instances of the burn. So, those things are important, but I really think it's time Gogo handed her old wives' tales to the old men now. And then we can manage. If we can just manage, how many children we see where maybe they've pulled a pot over, or they've pulled a kettle. Do you know, even going to your stove, and when you're working and you've got young children, but the pot handle hangs over the stove and the child can reach the pot handle, drinking coffee while you're holding a very newborn baby. Yeah. Things like that where accidents happen. Cool the burn straight away. In most instances, if it's a minor burn, you'll actually stop it from getting worse. There are big burns, though, that no matter even if you cool them or you don't cool them, they're big burns, like explosions and that kind of thing. But the treatment also for pain control is to cool the burn. And so if you can afford burn shield, great. But the other thing I wanted to tell you when you said you were going around your house, it's relatively cheap to put a smoke detector in your house. You buy them at the hardware, you put it in your kitchen, so how many times have you walked out your kitchen, gone and watched something on TV and realized the eggs that you boiled in a whole pot of water are now no longer water because it's smoke in your kitchen. You need a smoke detector that will wake you up, that says there's something going on here. So I do understand people can afford, and I do understand people can't afford. But in all instances, try and avoid things like putting stuff on the stove and then going to watch TV, or going for a walk and coming back and then you realize something has happened. So, absolutely. Easy. Treat the burn with water.
Yeah. That's it. And I love the emphasis on prevention and awareness is better than finding ourselves in a situation, because I think what I'm gathering from you is more often than not, the burns that are coming through into the emergency room are caused by our own carelessness and perhaps neglect of the environment around us. So it's preventable things if we're only but conscious of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And when it comes to treating burns, I mean, obviously when we're talking severer burns, I presume medicine has advanced in recent years.
So burn is a very, very, very devastating disease if it's a big burn. 60, 70, 80% burns, very, very lucky if you survive, depending on the thickness and depending on where you burnt and that kind of thing. So, yeah, medicine has improved in terms of we can do coverage and we can do skin grafts and we can give you an antibiotic, we can put you on a ventilator, but the body is the body. And unfortunately, if the burn is significant enough, it will and may land up being fatal. And that's why it's so important to be so careful and not to be distracted around fire. We have very, very many incidents that happen due to distracted parenting. You can just watch. I just spoke to someone the other day who was having a child with her, but she put the child on the washing machine on the car seat. And then she switched on the washing machine and then she turned her back and then the washing machine spun and then the baby fell off the washing machine. Now that's distracted parenting. That's not really what we should be doing. Children drowning in swimming pools in front of their parents. Why? Because the parents are more interested in chatting to each other and having a party than they are watching the kids. And it's exactly the same thing with burns. Just being distracted, not knowing and not teaching people. There is a reason why you say no, don't put if all our bras did well, they'd all come with petrol. So why would we want you to put petrol on a bra or some sort of accelerator on a bra?
Absolutely.
That you really, sometimes when you look back and you say, how did this burn occur? You just think it's so devastating to have the burn, and it would have been one simple step. Don't be distracted and prevent it in the first place.
Absolutely. Mandy, I think you've given us a lot of logic and practical tips and things to consider. And if anyone's listening today and doesn't go home and do some kind of assessment on their household and do the mock fire drills with their families, we are only but the fools. That was Mandy Topkin, who is the General Manager of Emergency Trauma and Transplant, as well as a corporate social investment at Netcare. Madupi standing by with our headline news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridget, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, family members of workers trapped underneath the rubble of a collapsed building at George in the Western Cape say they are still waiting for confirmation on whether their loved ones have been recovered or not. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the newly built Home Affairs Office and the 100 mobile truck offices in Mokopane, Limpopo will help reduce the influx of people at the department's offices. And there may be evidence that Jabulani Khumalo, who registered the MK party last year, handed over the party's leadership to former President Jacob Zuma last month. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 3.
For the first time in 30 years, the ANC is set to lose its majority. Opposition parties have united as the multi-party charter for South Africa.
A strong democratic alliance with a proven track record
can anchor a new government that serves the people.
But a new government that works is only possible if you vote for it. Let's unite and rescue South Africa. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
Welcome to the game of life. At kickoff, it's 0-0. What you do next decides the result. Make a good decision, you're ahead. Make a mistake, you're chasing. You need a good plan and a great team behind you. Find that team at lifeofconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Live with confidence. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services and registered credit provider.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, leading the conversation in the final moments of the show as we prepare to wrap things up over the next 30 minutes. We thought we'd take a focused look on financial wellness, and we asked the question, does your financial heritage help or hinder you financially? What I simply mean by this is that, when we talk about heritage, we often obviously imagine things around food and culture and history and race, etc., etc. However, the other important aspect of heritage that we often overlook is finances, right? And how money habits are something that we observe and that we learn from our parents and our grandparents and those people that are nearest and dearest to us. And oftentimes, for good or for bad, that also in turn influences how we relate to money and how we use money and how we perceive money, and our traits around money. So we ask you the question, how much of that heritage, how much of that awareness is at play with your relationship with money, how you use money and how you engage money? Is it something that you've learned from your parents or your grandparents? And was it good? Was it bad? Or are you trying to do a little bit better than what you saw them do over the years? 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, or 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. And we've got Annelien van der Paul joining us now with Debt Rescue SA. And of course, Annelien is the Chief Operating Officer there. Good afternoon to you. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Very rarely, I think, do we think, heritage in context to money, but perhaps an interesting connection needs to be drawn there.
Absolutely. It's something I think that is very subconscious. We don't realize it. But the reality is children mimic their parents. And a lot of times they observe what we do without us even realizing it. And a lot of times they're going to, unfortunately, emulate some of our behaviors. And ideally, we want them to be the good behaviors that they emulate. And we have to be so conscious of this as parents at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I wonder, when we talk about being conscious of this, Annelien, I don't know. When I engage with money, on a good day, I'm conscious around what I'm doing, and making informed decisions. But on most days, I'm just kind of flying by what do they say? The seats of my pants, the pants of my seat. I forget what is that saying. How easy it is for us to be conscious of our behaviors and our interaction with money. Ultimately, also being conscious of what we are passing on to our children and those that we are raising.
No, it's very true, and I think it's not often that we actually even consider this. I think it's mostly, it only comes to mind if we sit down and think how much of, for example, our parents' habits we are emulating and possibly bringing through. Now, for me who works in this industry, obviously I'm very conscious of it, and it's something that I'm exposed to. So to me, it's obviously slightly different. But I think for most part, if I think of most things, my parents' behavior has an influence on a lot of things, how I approach things, and most likely will emulate the way they had approached it. And finances are no different when it comes to children. They observe what we do. They look at, did my mom just go into the store and just pack everything in the trolley and never check the prices of things? Or was my mom conscientious and she compared prices? And I think we don't realize it and we don't consciously think of it, but we are definitely, carrying these behaviors across to our children. And they're observing. They're these little sponges and we're their first teachers at the end of the day, and probably definitely the ones with the biggest influences on their lives. So they're going to look to what we do and how we behave in numerous circumstances, and that includes our finances.
And here's a sort of a counter argument. Some people will go, well, easier said than done, considering where we find ourselves as South Africans, and a lot of households and parents now struggling to make ends meet. And so maybe I'm not trying to impart a sort of a perception of a bad behavior or bad relationship with money. It's just the circumstance that I find myself in right now, as a lot of people find themselves in. How do we balance that? How do we balance that? You see parents sort of relying on credit, leaning more into debt. And how do we make that make sense for children to say, this is not the way it should be, it's just the necessity of the moment?
Well, I think there's a couple of things to contemplate there. And that's firstly, openness. It's something that we are not as much as we should be when it comes to finance. We're open on so many topics these days, and we will share with our children and ask them to share with us and be very open. But when it comes to finance, as parents, we tend to keep the kids, at one side. And obviously there's a lot of information, financial information that children don't need to know.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to spending habits, I mean, they don't need to know that you are going into debt for something, but they need to understand when you are purchasing something, why is it that you are purchasing? Did you think this through? And you can make that almost conversational to say, I'm going shopping on Saturday, and this week before we go grocery shopping, we need to make a quick list to make sure we don't buy things we don't need and we don't forget things at home. So help me and involve them. And then when you're at the store, help them, make them part of the journey. Remember, we saw the rice was on special here. Help me find it. That's the kind of behaviors we want them to emulate and to see that. Being conscientious, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Being cognizant of what the prices are of things, that's nothing to be ashamed of. And that we can be, creative about how we get our kids, obviously depending on their ages, but get them involved in it, but in a way where it's educating them to say, oh, mom actually, or dad, whomever does the shopping, takes notice of it and makes me part of it. And you can turn it into almost a bit of a game, like I say, depending on their age, but help me find this. This is on special at this store. I'm looking for this. It's not that one. It's actually this one. Do you see why? Because you see there's a 3 Rand price difference or a 5 Rand or whatever the case may be. But those are the kind of things we can get our kids involved in so that they can learn these kind of behaviors from us to see, I plan before I go shop. I literally am making you part of the process. They don't have to get involved with it. Like I say, there's elements of finance where, children really do not need to be involved in, and there's not much to gain. We don't want them anxious about my parents' debt situation, but we can make them part of the, why are my parents, thinking about before they buy.
And I think what you're saying also speaks to a responsibility to almost model sound financial behavior and what you guys often refer to as instilling positive habits in society.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. And like I said, it's almost been one of those topics that's been taboo, is talking about budgets and talking about, we almost want to not have this conversation about, I can't afford that because it's too expensive. And more, if we look at the debt statistics in this country, we know that consumers are struggling. And rather us being honest about it and going and saying, I can't afford that. Thank you very much for inviting me. Or, you know what, can we find a cheaper alternative, a better alternative, a more cost-effective alternative of doing something or buying something, etc. There's no shame in it. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. And you'd be surprised how many people agree with you on that. I mean, I take something like the festive season and buying gifts. We as a family agreed over December, we're Secret Santaing as adults. Each person picked one other adult and we bought that gift, and nobody thought anything of it. Everybody was actually so happy to take that stress off of having to buy for so many different people, emotionally as well as financially. And everybody was like, yeah, absolutely. You'd be surprised when somebody breaks the ice, how nice it is to actually go, you know what, sure, it's not just me.
Yeah. And I think that's it right there. 0614104107 as we have this conversation with Annaline around, our financial heritage. I wonder, in your household, what lessons were you taught by your parents or your grandparents around money? Were you taught to be prudent and conscious around how you spend and why you spend? Or were you taught to just really be, reckless and live for the moment and do as you please, because God will provide tomorrow? 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line that you can call us on, or of course 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us if you want to go live. Let's pause for a second there, Annaline, as Ashraf comes through and lets us know what's coming up today on the National Pulse, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation.
The National Pulse.
But I mean, the same can apply then to, and it's a different issue, but the same can apply to former President Jacob Zuma as well. So both of them, it's like they may not be competing against each other, but in fact, there are posturings that are taking place on the national stage.
Zuma, his agenda, by the way, he hates Cyril Ramaphosa. And he hates Cyril Ramaphosa mainly because he thinks that Cyril Ramaphosa jailed him. So his interpretation of his imprisonment recently is that he was imprisoned by Cyril Ramaphosa. So he wants to punish Ramaphosa. He's on a personal mission. So how does he do so? He wants to make sure that the ANC under Ramaphosa loses power. And he would then emerge under MK to be part of those who are going to negotiate a deal to lead South Africa after the elections. That's the game that Zuma is playing.
Political analyst Prince Mashele.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Imagine listening to your own voice as you're about to deliver it live.
Who's that guy?
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. No comment about us and what we sound like, right? Yeah, I'm pretty well, yeah.
Awesome. What's coming up today?
Well, I mean, as alluded to in that soundbite that we just heard, so... you heard the story today about the expelled member of the MK party suspending the person who expelled him. But anyway, the IEC now confirming that Jacob Zuma is the registered leader of the MK party. We look at the implications of all of that and the implications for the party, because I think that's quite significant. We get another take on the DA's burning flag advert. It's been ongoing since yesterday, as you know. And then Chad goes to the polls, a significant country in northwest Africa, somewhere there. And we'll talk about that too. And a whole lot more. As you know, with the National Pulse, it's a show that just develops literally every 15 minutes. So
as it should be, because it's all about what is on your pulse as you listen to him. 3 to 6 with Ashraf Garda coming through in just a matter of moments.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and of course 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on, as we want to find out your sort of heritage and relation with money. What were you taught by your parents, whether it's your parents, your grandparents, or people who played a significant role in your life, as to how you relate and how you handle money? And was it for the good or was it for the worst? Or perhaps you saw them do the worst, and the takeaway for you there was to do the exact opposite and doing a lot better for yourself. We've got a message from Tidiso in Bloemfontein, and Tidiso says, "Hey Bridget, my family has declared war against money. Money is our public enemy. We are in an abusive relationship with money. Salary comes in today, it won't see another day. It's in the family. Debt is our best friend. Sometimes you think we are bewitched." Well, there seems to be a lot of humor in it. But definitely, I don't know if... Teresa's trying to see the lighter side of things, but it shouldn't be the case, though, right? Money should not be the enemy.
No, it shouldn't, and I'm glad that she can still make light of it. That's awesome. But the reality is if we're talking about finance and we're talking about debt specifically, I think when we start getting honest with ourselves and we start getting realistic in terms of what is my situation, go back to the drawing board, that horrible B word, budgeting, and get a sense of where your money is actually going and start working towards a goal. Like I say, we don't need our children, if we use the whole heritage and conversation about children as part of this, we don't need our children in as part of the nitty-gritty details. But let's say we we want to go on vacation next year, and we set that as a goal. So we discuss that with the family and we say, listen, guys, how's everybody feel about this? Okay, so for us to achieve that, it means we're going to have to make some change. It means, less takeout or whatever it is that's happening in your life. And everybody forms part of this, and you'd be surprised how kids turn around and go, is that not going to affect us potentially for us going on our holiday if we want to buy something? It's amazing. Like I said, these little sponges that they have become. I have a daughter and she's 19 now. And obviously I've been doing this since she was a toddler. So she's very aware of what I do. And she's very conscientious. And she'd say, Mom, explain to me, what does this mean? And if a person, how does compounded interest work? Because, they learn it about school, but they don't never see it in practice. So you go, okay, so this is how compound interest works. And you make it practical. And then you go, okay, what is good debt? What's bad debt? Nobody can buy a house cash, but that is good debt. Why is it good debt? Open the conversation, start having real conversations with them. But for us, from our perspective, when it comes to our own personal finance, we have to go back to the drawing board. We have to set those goals for ourselves and work towards coming, how do I get out of the situation that I'm in?
Absolutely. We're having a family meeting with you on 0614104107. We want to invite you to share your thoughts and how you relate with money and what you were taught ultimately, or what you observed growing up, and what that means for you as an adult now, having to handle your own finances, your own budgeting. Have you taken something from some of the lessons that you watched in your household, or are you doing things differently? Michael out in PE, how are you?
Bridget, look, man. If you look at, I can speak about black families, right? Because I'm black.
Yeah.
It's not a racial thing, but if you look at black families, black families we teach everything except money, right?
Yeah.
As kids, we teach. You'll be taught everything: Sunday school, love Jesus, and etc. But money is not part of what is taught. I'm talking about wealth creation and what money actually is. That conversation we don't have it in black families like with the kids to say, okay, to make money. Perhaps you need to have a product, you need to sell the product, we do not have that conversation. We just know our parents go to work, they pay the school fees, and we play, and etc., etc., etc. But as to how money is actually made, like wealth creation is not a conversation that we had. But
absolutely.
If you look at, because I've been fortunate to have been around the world. If you look at other races like the Greeks, Italians, Jews, the kids are taught wealth creation from birth. So they understand money by the time they become adults.
Michael, you make that is a salient point that you are making. I cannot argue on that. It's not like a race thing, but it's a race thing. You know what I mean? Because I think 9 out of 10 black folks, we were all nodding in agreement with Michael, going, no, we don't have these conversations. We're not taught about money. And this also, Annalene, this also speaks to how are we then going to learn new habits, and how are we going to pass on new habits in order for us to have a proper dynamic change effect? Because once we change our individual and household relationships in relation to money, ultimately we change society's relationship with money, and ultimately we then change the economic environment and the ecosystem around money.
Absolutely, and I agree completely. And I think each culture has their own different way of how they deal with finances, etc. But I think it all comes down to the same thing: is that we all have a responsibility towards ourselves and our children in the way that we first need to educate ourselves. A lot of time, unfortunately, there is a lack of proper education on, specifically when it comes to wealth creation. I mean, I know that they're trying to build into curriculums, in schools, the basics, some of the absolute basic items in terms of financial education, etc. But not enough education is out there. And then, you enter adulthood and suddenly you have all these, you earn your first salary, for example, and suddenly you go, oh, yay, I've got all this money. But you're like, okay, but you might have to start saving for your own place to stay and a deposit. And, are you going to rent? Are you going to buy eventually? What are your plans? There's such an opportunity. And unfortunately, there's not enough of this coming down from adults down to the kids. And I mean, we're all unfortunately in that situation where we are not focusing on that enough. And I think this is where that conscientious decision, as parents come, where first let's educate ourselves. First, be careful of get rich quick schemes and the likes. And, there's incredible Facebook groups that I belong to where these people specifically focus on, for example, and it's the one group I belong to is a ladies only group, but they literally are training themselves and motivating each other, and it's phenomenal to watch, to become debt free. And they're like, they cheer each other on, and they're like, okay, save, I'm going to get rid of this account, and I'm going to get rid of this account, and when I've paid it up, I slip up the card or whatever the case may be, and everybody is joyous with them. But it's amazing, like I say, when you start speaking to people, how people rally around you and go, yeah, let's become debt-free. Let's work on wealth creation. And like I say, obviously, there's a lot of people who are going to give a million opinions.
Yeah.
But most definitely make sure you educate yourself as well so that you don't get caught up in something that it looks really good and possibly is too good to be true. But there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Absolutely. Let's go to WhatsApp and hear what's on your mind. We are within our family meeting now. We want to hear your thoughts on what you think, or how your relationship with money is going and who influenced it. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi, Bridget. When it comes to money, I will never follow my parents' footsteps, because no, those guys are stingy. I prefer spending my money. I prefer money taking care of me than me taking care of money.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. It's Portia here. So I honestly don't inherit any financial traits from my parents, only because I believe that they have poor financial decisions. They don't treat money well. So growing up, I've always experienced it and I've seen it. So I can't say I've inherited any of those. I think the only inheritance when it comes to that I took is to make better financial decisions, learn, read, speak to people that are financially savvy, that kind of know and have the knowledge that I can learn from, but not particularly from them. The only thing I would say is possibly the fact that I've inherited the fact that I don't want to be like them when it comes to financial decisions.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm just laughing. The guy, I think if I don't got his name correctly, is Sidi, so he's got a good humor. That guy is a narrator. He says it quite nicely. He says, "Money, it is your best friend as a home." And that's a nice one. I laugh my lungs out. Yeah, he's a nice orator. Oh, I love it. Oh, this is Silibisa from Bloemfontein. I was laughing alone in my car.
Shalom, Bridget. This is Wisdom. What I learned from my parents, they never taught, they never say anything, but by their actions. And one word that they will use all the time: accept what you have. Be content. Don't worry about other people. You must understand your situation, understand where you are in life, and be content. That principle has helped me a lot. They didn't just say it, but I saw to them from nothing. From nothing, we had absolutely nothing, and we grew from there. And the pioneering spirit, I learned from them. Thank you. Bye.
And I think, Annalene, two really good notes for us to wrap up our conversation as we wrap up the show. Accept what you have and be content. And earlier on, Portia speaking to, what she inherited was that she doesn't want to be like her parents in as far as money was concerned because they were bad at it. So she consciously went out to seek healthy, good knowledge.
Absolutely. And I think, both your second and your last caller made very, very valid points. Your second caller specifically said that she did not take anything from her parents, but what she took from them was not taking their bad habits. That's actually something she learned from them, was that in her opinion, their habits were not something that she felt comfortable with. And she went and learned from that, albeit not being that they necessarily gave the habits that she would have liked to have gone and applied. She's gone and said, I can learn from this. And she did. And your last caller made a very valid point, which is, I think, so applicable right now with the financial situation that most of us are facing in this country, and that is literally a cost of living crisis, is being content. There's been this habit for so many years where, unfortunately, the living like the Joneses has been around for so many times. They've got that, the kids have that, they drive this, they live there, etc. But being content with what you have, I mean, probably, there's a bit of an age element in here as well. But where you go, those things are not important. The material things aren't. It's the real life things. It's having family. It's people that you love, that you can spend time with, that you can have real conversations with. Those are the important things. If we can have a roof over our heads, food on our table, we are already in a very privileged group.
Absolutely. Annalene van der Poel, we appreciate your time as always. And of course, Annalene is the Chief Operating Officer with Debt Rescue SA. And that is how we wrap up our show this afternoon. Thank you so much for sharing your views and your perspective for our family meeting today as we talked around financial heritage. Lots for us to take away from this conversation. We will see you tomorrow for more robust chats with some of our more fabulous and knowledgeable guests who join us on the show on a daily basis. And we always appreciate you also sharing your insights as well as your personal experiences with us whenever we invite you to do so. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again tomorrow.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Top stories